Welcome to Z Pandem with Divyasri Bagrodia. I am so honored to have Mr. Adi Ignatius here today. He's the editor-in-chief of Harvard Business Review, and he needs no other introduction. Welcome to Z Pandem, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Divyasri. It's nice to be here.
So, diving right into it, so what are the key changes that you think Gen Z will face in the post-pandemic era in terms of how we live, work, study, and so on?
Yeah, great question. This is I guess a life-defining moment, a life-changing moment in many ways. For millennials, the recession of 2008, 2009, I think has affected that generation in ways that persist now more than a decade later. And I think it's entirely possible COVID-19 will define at least the early years of Gen Z in a similar way.
Right.
It's not necessarily all bad. I mean, obviously there are economic dislocations, there are job losses, there's uncertainty, but it's also such a reset moment that I think it's possible that the skills and attitudes that Gen Z, and by the way, I want to say, in some ways I hate to generalize so much because obviously there's a lot of significant differences within generation, but we will generalize today, that some of the attributes and skills that Gen Z naturally brings, could be real assets as we rebuild the economy after COVID-19.
Right, sir. What are some skills and attitudes that would help Gen Z, and what advice do you have for us?
Well, I guess don't lose hope. I mean, we life is about having plans and having goals and then adapting when they're disrupted. And COVID-19 has been a severe disruption that has hit not just one or two people, but all of us in one way or the other. So I guess I don't necessarily believe that life will be characterized by one crisis after another. I mean, I feel very lucky. I grew up in a period where there were very few disruptions of this kind. It may be that the coming years will have more of that, but I grew up in an era where the economy was expanding, where the world was expanding. We all of us were able to understand the globe, to travel internationally. I never worried about job opportunities because they were plenty. I don't think anyone would describe the current economy as that way now, but we have cycles. There are cycles, global cycles in politics, global cycles in the economy.
Right.
So I guess, let's hope for a period of expansion where this generation feels as much as mine did, that there are just opportunities aplenty. So, but you asked for advice. I mean, I guess two things. One is think hard about the skills that you need. I mean, there are two basic choices. Do you want to work for a company and have a traditional career? Do you want to work for yourself? And, it seems like a lot of Gen Z would like to be entrepreneurial, would like to be self-employed. And
Right. Yes.
but certainly as an employer, I'm looking for the skills, even as a media organization, that everyone's looking for. People who understand data, people who know how to code, but also people who have their heads screwed on right, people who can run projects, people who understand other people, people who have kind of emotional intelligence. So,
Right, sir.
there's a range. And the last thing I would say in terms of skills, we need to be really attentive to our mental health these days. I mean, when I was younger, nobody talked about mental health because it was almost, shameful to do so. But it's, COVID-19 alone has created so much uncertainty and stress and anxiety that I hope that everybody now feels comfortable. You need to tend to your mental health as much as you need to, tend to your physical health if your arm is broken or something. It should be a natural thing.
So, with so much changing, with working from home, the new work culture, so what trends do you see in the management theory, in the practice of management and leadership development?
Yeah. So the working from home, we'll have to see how that plays out. I mean, in a lot of industries, including publishing, my own industry, we moved very easily and very seamlessly into work from home. we're really doing everything that we used to do, and almost as effectively as we used to do. And that raises really interesting questions, like what is the point of an office? I would say half of my staff, so we're still working from home. We haven't gone back to the office yet. Half of my staff is desperate to get back to the office for that kind of nurturing human contact that you have often spontaneously in an office.
Right.
And half have no interest in going back. It seems risky. They have children at home they have to take care of, and the idea of going to an office makes no sense whatsoever. So I think we'll probably have more work from home, but we have to think about, so why do we have offices? What's the point of an office? We used to think, well, that's where people work, and we won't know if they're working or not, if they're home. We're past that. We know if, it's obvious if you're contributing or not. So there has to be a real reason then to be in the office. We're still trying to figure that out, whether it's to bring teams together to work more effectively in projects, which feels right to me, or whether it's just to kind of develop and absorb a kind of company culture that can't really, I think, be disseminated and enhanced remotely. But it's an interesting question. As for sort of younger generation, they hold people like me accountable on, we talk about management where you interact with everyone who reports to you and they really know where they stand, and they really, to be honest, managers aren't very good at that. And millennials and Gen Z both are kind of demanding, are kind of in our face saying, feedback, feedback, feedback. And that can be annoying to managers. It's also exactly what a manager should be doing. So, I think there's a sense in which, the younger cohorts are pushing us to do the kind of things we should have been doing in the first place.
Right, sir.
I think, this is a big moment. And, we know from research that, again, to generalize, that entire generations can really be affected by major external sort of events. I mean, that was true with my father. My father's still alive. He's going to turn 100 this year. So he grew up during the Great Depression in the 1920s. And, I would say that entire cohort, I mean, he's among the last living, were affected. I mean, their attitude towards money, toward careers was affected by their experience living in the Great Depression. I think that's true with millennials in the more recent Great Recession. It's probably true with Gen Z, that COVID-19, the uncertainty and perhaps the opportunity that it creates will affect them for their entire lives. So I think you're onto something. To try to talk to this generation right now at this moment seems really smart.
Thank you so much, sir. It truly means a lot coming from you. So, to end with, sir, do you see any opportunities that COVID-19, that this pandemic, the lockdown would bring into our lives in terms of development?
I hope it's making us kinder. I hope it's making us appreciate how fragile everything is. I hope it's making us appreciate how much we miss human contact, and that we will embrace it and cherish it and understand its full value when we're able to recirculate. So I guess that's my most optimistic thing, that we'll feel the absence of human contact and appreciate it so much more when we're back to something like normal.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. It was great chatting with you. And
that sounds great. Well, good luck with the project. It's nice to speak to you as well.
Sir. Thank you.
Okay.